This meeting is called to order. I would like to announce today's date for the recording. Today, February 16th, we are at Eastport Branch Library, the community library. We will have welcome by our manager, Ms. Noble. There she is.
Hi, yay! Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Eastport Annapolis Neck Library. Thank you for braving Forest Drive and the rain to come down here on the peninsula and see us. I know that your time is short, so I only have a few things to say. One being that almost 15 years ago, a board that looked very different from you had approved my appointment to this branch. There have certainly been some challenges, but I am still happy to come to work here every day. I have 12 career staff dedicated to serving this community with respect and kindness. We are now the, come on, Smartboard. We are now the smallest and oldest branch in Annapolis. However, our generous county funding and the even more generous support by the foundation means you can't tell. We don't quite look 25, we are 45. We look okay. And we have been collecting many wonderful partners this year, including Seeds for Success. They work with low-income students to improve their chances for later in life. They work with them on academic things, life skills, and when they come in here, they're already in our library, so we share all that we have with them. Have a great meeting.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank everyone for attending today's meeting. I know on behalf of our chair, he appreciates everything you've done, and I'm sure you would love to be here. Unfortunately, you cannot be. At this time, I'll turn control over to Skip, who will be welcoming some guests.
Well, hello, everyone. It's great to see everyone here who was able to be here in person today. Thank you for getting here. Our chair and our second vice chair both are out ill and couldn't even be here, and our treasurer had to be out with some issues. So when we get to the discussion of meeting in person, we'll have some interesting sort of things to talk about with so many people unable to be here. I'm going to take a moment just to introduce some guests here, and we will hear from two of our guests in just a short while. I want to say to everyone, we have the microphones here and here, and I'm assured that mics will pick up your voices at the far end of the table, but you do need to speak and project, and remember, you're speaking to the back of a big auditorium. Just think of it that way. So first, I'd like to introduce some of our staff who are here. Representing the Staff Association, we have Laura Kelman. And Laura, would you just stand up, please? And as I call your name, I'd like everybody to stand up. Laura started with Anne Arundel County Public Library 10 years ago as a part-time hourly staff member. 4 years ago, she was hired full-time at Severna Park, and she's been on the Staff Association as a representative from Severna Park for 3 years. So welcome, Laura. And Sarah Bates is a library associate at Bush Annapolis Library. She's been with us for 3 years. And Sarah, did you start like basically when we were opening Bush Annapolis?
I started in February, right before the pandemic shut everything down.
Oh, that was good timing.
Yeah,
Such
came back once the building.
Oh my gosh, well, good timing. And so since you started before, you got paid, right?
Yes.
Hey, that's great. That's great. So, and Sarah has been the Staff Association branch representative since September. We have, okay, I want to introduce Stephen Holt. Stephen, would you stand up? Stephen is a great member of our foundation board of directors. He's been on, Stephen, how long have you been on that board?
I don't know.
Okay.
Three
or 4 years.
Okay.
3 or 4 years, there you go. But he's great, yeah. What he does know is how to help us raise money, which we really appreciate. So. We have 3 other people here who are visiting today from the branch libraries. They are fairly new library associates, and when you join our staff as a library associate, you go through what we call LATI, which is the Library Associate Training Institute. So I'm going to start with the longest term employee of this group, and that is Faith Harless. Faith, would you stand up? She's the library associate right here at Eastport Annapolis Next since July, and all three of these folks have begun their training program back in January, I think. But thank you for being here. Next, I want to introduce Jessica Covington. Jessica works at the Linthicum Library and has been here since September, so welcome. And last but not least, Jeanette Thayer works at Discoveries, the library at Annapolis Mall, at Westfield Annapolis Mall. And Jeanette started in October. With that, did I leave anybody out who is a guest? Oh, yes, I did leave out two of our guests, two of our primary guests. Not that you all are primary, but two of our guests are going to be speaking to us in just a moment during the public comment. That'll be in just a few minutes. But I would like Colonel Brooks Tucker, if you would stand, please. He is retired Marine U.S. Lieutenant Colonel. He is on the Anne Arundel County Veterans Affairs Commission, lives in St. Margaret's, and Colonel Tucker is representing the Veterans Affairs Commission, partly on behalf of the chair of the commission, John Church, but really on behalf of the whole commission. So welcome. And second, we have Denise Robinson, and Denise lives in Annapolis. She has for 7.5 years been managing the Legacy of Honor project. I promised to say that she's the UMBC person, and what is it, the Retrievers? Go Retrievers. So she's been a coach with Anne Arundel County. She's been with the Recreation League, and then the Faces of Margraten, of World War II research organization. So she'll be talking with us. We have offered them each to speak for 3 minutes each, and I'm going to be the timer on that. We're not expecting questions from the audience because I believe they'll be making a recommendation that will go to one of the board committees at the April meeting, and a potential policy recommendation to come up at May. But with that, I turn it back to our esteemed Chair Simmons.
And I want to say, please pardon any faux pas, because this is new to me. Skip is helping me to guide this ship, and you. All right, we need approval of the agenda. So we are hoping everyone had a chance to review the agenda. So do we have a motion to approve the agenda? I second. Thank you. Okay, are there any revisions or any changes to the minutes for the last meeting? Okay, none, hearing none. Let's call for the vote to approve them. Is there a motion on the floor?
I see.
Thank you. Second? All in favor? Aye. Any nays? Thank you. Minutes are approved. Now, we will have the agenda. Okay, the agenda, that's a good point. Is the agenda approved? Are there any revisions, additions? So, motion to approve the agenda. I so move. Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Now, we'll go into public comment, which will be facilitated led by.
I believe that Colonel Tucker, you opted to go first.
Yes. Well, good afternoon. I'm here today as a county resident, Marine Corps veteran, and a representative of the Anne Arundel County Veterans Affairs Commission, and Sheriff and Colonel John Church, U.S. Air Force retired, who was unable to attend today. My attendance follows an email that was sent to Colonel Church in November of last year from Mr. John Spencer, a county resident, who noted the lack of any observation of Veterans Day at one of your library branches. Colonel Church attended a meeting on January 23rd of this year at the Bowdoin Library, and a meeting on February 10th of this year at the Mountain Road Library. On each occasion, he met with representatives of those branches and spoke about commemorating Memorial Day and Veterans Day. On behalf of the Anne Arundel County Veterans Affairs Commission, I'm here today to recommend consideration of a particular program or policy which is to commemorate Memorial Day and Veterans Day in all county library branches, something which might not happen without emphasis from all of you on board. Both of these days are recognized at the national and state levels and by the county school system. Now, we understand that each library branch is responsible to its respective clientele, which is the local communities, and each branch makes decisions about how to serve that community. As a result, we believe emphasis from this board offers the best chance of this recommendation being observed. On Memorial Day, celebrated as the last Monday in May, we pause as a nation to remember those who died in military service to the nation. Some of you may not know this, but at the Crownsville Veterans Cemetery, which opened in 1980, more than 27,000 Maryland veterans and their dependents are buried. There is space there for an additional 48,000 plots. I hope that order of magnitude gives you pause as we think the men and women buried there. On November 11th, we commemorate the men and women in uniform currently serving in this nation and all those who have served honorably on active duty. On that day, we also pause to thank almost 50,000 veterans living in Anne Arundel County, who represent a calculated 13% of the county population. The county is home to over 13,000 active duty military, 300 National Guard, and almost 4,000 reserve personnel. I'm hopeful you share the view that deceased military veterans warrant recognition in May. I hope you share the view that in November, we should celebrate the men and women who are currently serving, 1% of our national population, and those who have served honorably, many of whom are our friends and our neighbors. There are many ways to commemorate both of these special days, from book displays to guest speakers to participating in the Library of Congress Veterans History Project. Those are but a few ideas to inform patrons and wider communities. Thank you for the opportunity to address this issue in person today.
Thank you so much. I should note that I told both of them that when they have 30 seconds to go, I will stand up. And so when you see me, you'll know, oh, that's their cue. Also, Colonel Tucker has given me a copy of this. If you would, sir, please email that to me. And I'll make sure I email your remarks out to the full board. Ms. Robinson.
Yes, hi. My name is Denise Robinson, and several years ago I started the Legacy of Honor Project because I was amazed at the fact that nobody in this area was really preserving and telling the stories of the men and women who died while serving. It's very personal to me. While many of you can remember sitting on your grandfather's lap, holding his hand, what I held my grandfather was dog tags. I never got to hold his hand. I never got to hear him say his name. I don't know what his voice sounds like. I don't know anything about him other than what I've been told. So with that, I realized how many people are truly impacted. When I was told that they don't really observe Memorial Day, and I called many libraries, because I was actually told it really doesn't impact us, we're closed. So what I did is here is Annapolis. The gold stars you see are the men who died while serving in World War I, World War II, Vietnam, and Korea. That does not include modern day. This is the city of Annapolis as it was. You have to remember in 18 to 1945, that era, it was actually, the majority of Annapolis was part of the county. So as I expand out to the county, those gold stars are actually going to start to fill in. When you add to these stars, the men and women who were here that weren't born and raised in Annapolis, I have to add another 62 stars for World War II, another 14 stars for World War I. When you add the men from the Naval Academy that died while serving in World War II, who all walked the streets of Annapolis, it's another 736 stars that impacted just this area. So for me, especially since I know Senator Bush and I talked to him, the fact that the Bush Library on West Street, which sits right down from Brewer Hill Cemetery, that holds 6 men who died while serving, sits right next to the Annapolis National Cemetery, is right down from the 5,100 names of the men who died in World War II. I was astounded. The library has always been a place where you can learn the stories about the men that were hidden. And what the people think is they see the headstones. But this is what it is about. This was taken 45 days after landing on Omaha Beach. This is company and the Annapolis Company, 115th Infantry Division, 29th Infantry. Now, of this photograph, 4 men were killed in action. Another 6 were wounded. 2 critically were brought back to the States. So when people see this, they should be seeing Harry Tolson. They should be seeing Roland Sackville. These guys, they were cousins. They served together. They were tech sergeants. He died August 3rd, 1944. He died August 4th, 1944. A day apart. And that was West Annapolis. Okay. The other thing I have at the library, forgive me, this is a story that we are in African history month. One thing that's greatly neglected are the stories of the African American men. Everybody has heard of the Tuskegee Airmen, but how many have heard of the 366th Infantry Division at Summa Italy? Very few. It was the only all African American infantry division. There were no white officers, they were all African American. One of the men, PFC Howard Joseph Cooper, grew up on Medora Street, with 2 blocks from your Olympic Library. On December 26th, the German 14th Infantry attacked the company Agent F from the 366. Lieutenant John Fox was the commander. They requested several times to get aid from the white officers with the 92nd Infantry Buffalo Division. I'm sorry, his story needs to be told. They were denied. The only way that he understood that the only way that the Gothic line would be held was to take this division out. He called in a mortar artillery attack for his position. He killed himself to save our troops. It took until 1997 for President Clinton to award Lieutenant John Fox the Congressional Medal of Honor. In 1950, Joseph Cooper was finally found and discovered under the rubble in Summa, Italy, and he was brought home. They couldn't, he was with 4 other men. They shared one casket because they couldn't identify who was who, and they were laid to rest in Arlington. These are the stories that the library can and should be telling. They're all in books. They're all there. We have speakers. We have all the
Thank
authorities in
you.
this area.
We have about 15 seconds.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Thank you so
But
much.
that's what we could do.
Thank you so much. We appreciate the information from both of our guests.
And I think just so you can feel assured that our board has heard you, they will, I'm sure, want to discuss this at a committee meeting in April, discuss probably with Ms. Hollerback, who's our Chief Operating Officer, who can give them information on what we already are doing and what we're planning to do to expand this. We received your packets of information, Ms. Robinson. We appreciate that, and I'll make sure that Ms. Hollerback has that. So the committee will discuss what you've presented. We'll go to and then if they decide they want to make a policy change, then they would take that to the full board at the May meeting. And if there are other ways that we can expand our programming to honor our veterans and military families, we certainly will take that up, but we really appreciate this.
I was gonna say, we can make maps for every library.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you again.
That is awesome. Thank you.
All right.
I do want to introduce Karen Smith, who, if you would stand, Karen, she is the president of the Foundation Board of Directors, and she just arrived a little bit later than the other folks. So welcome. No apologies. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll go to the next agenda item, which is the chair's report. Skip will introduce this topic by reading the memo from Mr. Nelson.
So this issue was brought up at the December board meeting, and I know there are some of you trustees who want to speak to this issue of the revised meeting schedule. So let me just give you a little bit of the background. At the December Board of Trustees meeting, I'm just going to read from the notes. Mr. Nelson said that the executive leadership team, so this was a recommendation of ours, which has, for the most part, been implemented, would contact the committee chairs in order to discuss potential changes to the meeting calendar. Proposed changes provide for 5 full board meetings per fiscal year, with committee meetings held in between these dates and no meetings held during the summer months. These and other meeting changes will be considered by the full board meeting in February. So that was not saying anything about whether they would be in person or virtual. And I think this email from Chris Nelson on January 11th sort of laid out what he thought would work well. And let me just read this to you, and then we'll just, Ms. Simmons will open up the floor. So he described the changes which are now in place where we've changed the schedule. We have We have the committee, the full board meetings happening in the order that I think everybody now knows. We don't meet in March because this is a transition year. April will be committees, May will be full board. And then we're going to start taking off in June and July, with August being committee meetings, and then we go into the 10 meetings a year from August through May on that kind of a calendar. What Chris said in this email, and he had not heard from anyone until yesterday or the day before, he heard from Rob Sapp, who expressed concern that he wanted to have some possibility for a hybrid option instead of just having to have these meetings in person. So here's what Chris said. I have also been concerned with the quality of our hybrid meetings in light of the limited ability of those zooming into the meetings to see and hear what is going on at the meetings proper, and considering the technical capabilities of our systems coming through the various library branches where board meetings have been held these past several months. I think it is extremely important for us to meet in person whenever possible, particularly now when many committee meetings will be conducted by Zoom. And frankly, I think all committee meetings will be strictly by Zoom from now on. That's what we heard from committee chairs. Accordingly, I ask that we cease using Zoom as an option for the 5 board meetings and plan on attending these 5 meetings in person. If desired, we can discuss this at our next in-person full board meeting in February. So I think it is desired, so Madam Chair.
Okay, right now we'll open up for discussion, but we're not necessarily voting.
If there's a motion that someone wants to make,
Okay.
this is your board.
All right, we will have discussion.
I had some comment.
And be sure to speak loudly
So
to the back of the auditorium.
Be recorded.
Sure. So for me, especially, as I know, just really speak for myself, I'm coming from Baltimore. Usually when I'm coming to these meetings, a lot of them being in Annapolis, and I pretty much have to bake in, an hour and a half total for travel time. If I leave even a few minutes late, that actually could mean that I don't make it at all, or I miss maybe, half the meeting. And so I really do, and in times when, with other things that may come up, work-related, life, personal, anything, just having the option of having a Zoom, a way to Zoom in would be great. I certainly think that to the extent that we all can, we really should be trying to make it to these meetings in person. I think it's really important for us to be able to get together and talk in person if possible. But in those instances when, for whatever reason, that we literally cannot make it in person, I think just having that Zoom option is definitely very helpful. And it just helps us to be able to participate in meetings that, for instance, in December, I was not able to make it in person. I felt like it was a very important meeting, so I was very glad to have the opportunity to Zoom in.
Any other?
Yes, I do agree as well, like, at least having the option. I've been, I've spoken to Skip. I was in an accident a few months ago, and I actually not just had like health issues, but I also can't drive, and so moving forward, is a concern that I certainly do have if I don't have the option to, depending on far it is. Obviously, I do live in Annapolis, so I'm incredibly lucky that I can come here, just get an Uber, but we will have in the future meetings that are going to be further and further apart. And so at least for me, it's, if for instance, I can get a ride or I can get transportation to a meeting, it will be very helpful if I can at least know that I can attend online. And so this meeting is good, the next meeting I believe is good, that as well, so I should be set for the next 2 meetings. But moving forward, it is something that I certainly have to keep in mind. But that's just for me, but at least, I certainly agree that, online it can be a bit challenging sometimes hearing and things like that. And just like you said, if we can do the best that we can to meet in person, obviously everyone has circumstantial things that can happen, but if everyone tries, and obviously, things can't happen, but at least having the option will certainly be something that I would like. Thank you.
Yes.
My question is, why can we not make the Zoom people work? What can we do? I do believe we should offer that, because there are times when people can't make it. If they come with COVID, which seems to be happening a lot now, we don't want them to come, but they would like to participate. I generally can make every meeting, but not everybody can. And so we've got to do something to make it so that our technology allows the people who Zoom to have a good experience.
I just wanted to follow up with what Jana Land said. I think, and Alex as well, I think there's a couple of things about the concerns. So I understand the need for us to meet in person, and I think we should. And maybe we look at the calendar year going maybe for 2024 and thinking about, okay, if we have 6 in-person meetings, can we make 1 or 2 of them, you know, can we make that capability? So I think there's that. But I think the more so it kind of seems to go against accessibility, which is what the library seems to promote. So it seems kind of counterproductive to say, we want to serve our patrons in this way, but board, you need to do this, which is kind of counterproductive to the mission that we do. I also think it creates a potential barrier for equities as we continue to move forward and recruit more people. You know, to Dallas's point, not everybody drives. That's a socioeconomic issue. It makes it kind of like a have and have nots. So I definitely think that, and to Jana Lane's point, why can't we make it work? Like, is it another platform? Is it the room? Like, what are the real issues why we can't make it work? And what are some solutions we can get closer to that?
In my comments, I joined before and we were meeting at the headquarters, and there were people who were not even in the country, but they were able to come in on the phone before we had Zoom. And I thought, wow, that person is really dedicated. They're on another continent, but they're here and they were able to contribute. I could hear them, but that's when we met in one place and we weren't meeting all over. And so I agree that we should have a hybrid because Mr. Nelson himself was not here for the first 3 meetings and he was our new board chair. And with the rain, I have another obligation, so I'm gonna have to leave early because of traffic and the rain, and I left my job at 2:15 in Silver Spring, and I didn't get here until 3:54. That's all traffic, you know, so I do think we need, if we could do it before, we can do it again. So I definitely would say that hybrid is an option, because I don't see how Mr. Nelson could have been the chair of our board, or why should he have been our chair if he couldn't be here in person?
Okay, is there a motion on the floor?
Oh, Tim had it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think it's some interesting points. The one thing I would observe is, you know, at the company I work for, where, you know, we have people who work from home as well as in the office, the one thing that we all noticed is it's fine when everybody's on Zoom. It's fine when everybody's in a room together. But when you have a group of people in a room and then people on Zoom, that dynamic just doesn't work. I don't even know if it's a technological issue so much as just a thing of the people on Zoom feel disconnected from the group, it's hard to hear. Maybe there's ways to solve their technological issue. But I would agree with Chris that the experience of the meetings has not been good. And it'd be nice to be able to improve that. I'm not sure if the solution is to make everybody come in person. I would observe that in recent meetings, it seems like more than half have come on virtual, and I don't think that's ideal. I think that people should strive to come here. The default should be to be in person, and then if you can't, it shouldn't be the preferred use to log on Zoom simply because that's what you're going to do.
All right, did I overlook anyone before I suggest?
Just echoing that, I would say where I work in the Naval Academy, in certain circumstances, it's seen as not an option, but as an available accommodation, right? Thinking of it in those terms, I think will make it very clear what, you know, the virtual option is. A rare exception.
Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion since there's not one on the floor?
I don't think that we can make one. I understand Rob's position, and I agree it would be ideal if everybody were always in person, But I also agree with people who said we have to make it accessible.
Sure.
And all of us, I know, intend to be here in person as often as possible. And it's the preferred way to be, but we still have to give people the option to participate. And you're right, we had people on the phone who could comment and who could hear. So maybe Zoom isn't the way to go, because we haven't had a good experience. They haven't been able to hear us. We haven't been able to hear them always. So maybe the visual part's not the important part.
Yeah, I experienced some problems when I tried to participate on Zoom, but Skip is gonna
Yeah,
add
just,
some more.
just a clarification, it was Chris's position that I read, not Rob's. Rob,
I'm sorry.
Rob,
Right.
what Rob did was to bring up his concern that he wanted to have an option. It is, if anybody on the board does want to make a motion, you can make a motion. You can move, for example, to allow a Zoom or phone or some other option for people to come in so that they don't have to be in person. So that could be a motion, it could be seconded, you could have further discussion and make a decision if you have that desire.
Right.
I move that we allow people to have the option.
I second.
Any further discussion?
I would say if we were to have such a motion, we should word the motion in such a way to say that it's an accommodation being provided for people who are unable to attend in person.
What he said.
So you are offering that as a friendly amendment to the motion that is on the table?
Yes.
I'm incorporating what he said.
Okay, so can you restate that so that Ms. Danny can make sure she gets exactly how you want that to
I
read?
would say the motion would be that the board shall provide and allow for board members to attend meetings virtually
In the event.
in the event that they are unable to attend.
I know I'm not supposed to interfere with this, but I want to say, are you interested in improving the technology piece?
I
Should
would-
that be?
I don't know if it's,
Okay. Good. All right, thank you. I'm sorry.
You go ahead, yes, you
I
go.
was just gonna say, we have purchased some more technology
Mhm.
and working with Joey and talking to Stephanie, so I think that we are in a better place with our technology. The tricky part is that if you're at home and your internet isn't working, or your, connection isn't right, or your updates on Zoom aren't done, there may be some things that are out of our control. We just have to accept that sometimes could happen, because we can only control on our side. We have made some changes though, so it should be better. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, good.
I was gonna wonder about I don't know how to re-amend or add to Rob's amendment, but I think
You mean to Tim's amendment?
Tim's amendment, thank
Yeah.
you. Is it that, we said in the event, but I think what we really need is an amendment to look at how to do this, and then we can come back to move it forward. I'd hate to just go out and say, let's do it, because what we don't have is a plan on how we're gonna move it forward. Catherine's given us words about how the technology's improved. We can just negate that Zoom by doing a dial-in. But nonetheless, I think what we should really look at is how to do it, and then come back and move it forward.
Okay, Skip, and did I see anyone else?
Just speaking for myself as a non-voting member of the board, let me put it that way.
We got you.
First of all, I wanted to say that today's meeting, I know that Chris and Rob and Kathy wanted to watch it, but we've had a technology issue today. We are recording the meeting, but they cannot watch it live today. So so we definitely have challenges, to your point, Faith. However, I think that if you allow the staff to figure out how, we will do that without that having to be incorporated as part of your direction to staff in this motion.
Okay.
Really quickly, I mean, since you pointed that out, is it reasonable to say that, for instance, if we have a separate plan, for instance, have Zoom as default But in case something happens, like, why can't we utilize the phone? Why can't
They
we
have
utilize
call-in
another
numbers on,
resource,
that's so weird.
you know, for them to be able to be here, or at least listen again, you know, in lifetime.
So I think, Alex, what you're asking, let me see if I understand what you're asking. You're asking, what I'm saying on behalf of Kathy and our whole team is that we're going to figure out how to do this. If you give us the direction you want to have these meetings hybrid, we're going to figure out how to do this. We're going to make the best possible plan. If it needs to be Zoom, plus we have the phone like the old system that we used to have, that's what we'll do. So we'll figure it out. We just need direction from the board of, you want to have hybrid meetings. That seems pretty clear once you decide to take a vote, but I think some of you may
But
still
it's
have
up to
further
them
comments
to
and
figure
questions.
out the quality and the best
Yeah,
experience.
we'll do all that. That'll be on us.
Okay, so I believe we've heard from everyone that wants to speak, so we want to move for second. Oh,
Got a
did we
second.
already second? Sorry for a vote. All in favor? This is.
Can we restate the?
Yes, please.
Donna, could
Thank you, Donna.
could you read the motion for us?
The
Please.
board shall provide and allow for board members to attend meetings virtually in the event they are unable to attend.
Okay. All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Yay. Okay, moving to the next item. Mr. Eastham. Oh, good.
Okay.
All right, for the next item, we have a stand-in.
So Mr. Eastep had some things that came up, and we were trying to work it out that he was going to get here, but he has been texting, and Mr. Lemke is ready to take over this next item on the governance committee.
Yes, so the key thing that we discussed at our last committee meeting was a proposal. We had a discussion both last meeting and previous to discuss the idea of adding a student member. So we had a good long discussion 2 meetings ago about potential, what that would look like. Do we want to have a student member of the board? Why do we want to have a student member of the board? And what the sort of parameters and rules that might entail. We also had the last main board meeting, we invited the student member of the board at Anne Arundel County Public Schools to give us a lot of good information because they're one of the few school boards in the country that has a student member with full voting rights. So I want to credit Jim for teeing up a lot of really good questions as we tried to think through if we wanted to proceed with this and what the recommendation might be. And you'll see 2 documents in board pack. One is a 1-pager as well as a change to the bylaws that we are, as a committee, recommending adding a student board member to this would involve creating a 18th spot on the board that would be assigned to a student member. They would serve a 1-year term, would be eligible for any rising junior or senior, and the student member could be somebody who attends public school, private school, or home school in the county. They would have the same responsibilities as all the board members have. So that is our proposal, and I guess we can move that on.
Skip is gonna say.
I would just like to comment. I believe that what the committee would hope for is that today the full board would vote on this recommendation of the committee, and then that would be the decision that we would add the student member to the board. The voting on the bylaws change, would then go to the committee in April with a with a vote on the bylaws change in May, knowing that the board had decided, it was the will of the board that you want this student member. So I think the discussion would be around the, do you agree, do you want to have that student member of the board? And I believe it was a unanimous recommendation of the committee. So, yeah.
So,
May I add something to this discussion? And we would begin recruitment.
Yes.
Because we want to get this individual approved at the.
May, would it be May?
May.
Cutting it close.
Question to that. If you want to recruit for May, then this person would need to be coming in as a senior. They would not, I'm trying to get the wording right about the rising junior, senior, so they would.
The timing is, now, it would be a little bit accelerated this time. The plan is you begin recruitment, they apply, they are voted on in the spring. I think it actually languages the final board meeting of the fiscal year, which is May or June. Then they would go through the onboarding and process, and their first day as a board member would be in September, to start their school year. So when I say rising senior, it's a senior that starts their senior year in September.
Okay, so it would be like 10th and 11th graders applying, because they would be 11th and 12th graders at the start of their term.
And point of clarification, I believe their first meeting would be the August committee meeting with the changed schedule. And then September would be their first full board meeting.
Yes.
A logistical question, I'm looking at school hours for the regional high schools, and it seems as though classes end at 3:18 every day. So knowing that our board meetings tend to begin at 4 p.m., I'm just thinking logistically here. I mean, let's say we're meeting in Linthicum and our student member is at South River High School. I'm just wondering, maybe this conversation bears on the previous conversation as far as making accommodations for folks who can't attend in person.
you're gonna
I would think
tell
that
them.
would be part of the discussion.
Agreed, yeah, they don't have a car and all that kind of stuff.
Sandy?
Most seniors are not attending school all day long.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
By the time of their senior year, some of them may have 2 periods, 3 periods, and they're out in the afternoon.
With this only being once a month,
Yeah.
I'm sure they get special accommodations.
Right, and most seniors have cars.
Oh, I was just gonna say, students are often leave school for sporting events and other events. Students who serve on the, like in Montgomery County, those student members, they're there all day and missing school. So, that would be something that they would have to consider when applying, and I think we could accommodate that.
I think it's worth mentioning that the school board has had this full voting right student number since the 80s. They've got no issues right over that 40-some-year period.
Okay,
I
yes.
just have a question, clarification. When we say student, we're restricting it to high school student, as opposed to maybe community college or anything that level?
They would be, yeah, so rising junior in high school.
High school. All comments, now we're prepared to vote, right? All in favor?
I think you need a motion.
Oh, no, well, the motion is to have a.
Oh, that's right, that came from the committee.
I am paying attention to words.
I'm sorry.
We're great, aren't we? We're a great team.
Great team there.
I do have a question because I wasn't at the committee. I think this is a great idea, but in the event it didn't work out.
Oh, I had
logistical-
suggested in a meeting that we do it for 1 year.
I was gonna say that, is it like a
Is that
pilot?
correct, remember?
Yeah, what happens if it
Well,
didn't?
I said 1 year. And to revisit, that was my thought.
Great.
So let me just say what I think would happen. If this is decided, and then in May, the board changes the bylaws, and it's not working out, at that point in time, the board can make the decision to revisit this and withdraw the idea.
Right.
But it would be
Yeah.
a new change based on the experience, and that's how it
Right.
would work.
All right, thank you.
I have a question. If that is done, When is the timing of that? Because it's not fair to have kids apply for something that doesn't come to pass. Because I'm a little concerned about the timing, based on what was just stated.
Okay,
I'm a little
so
lost.
if you make this decision now, we will begin recruitment. If you make the decision now, then the bylaws is more or less a pro forma change to the bylaws to make it align and to make your bylaws accurate based on the decision you're making today. So you're making a decision, we're starting recruiting. By the May meeting, we would hope to be able to be ready to present that student member to the board. And then the bylaws would be changed. Next year, you would have that person on board. And then if something changes in the following year, you're going to know by January or something. This is horrible.
Right.
You're going to change it. We're not going to recruit next year.
Oh, okay, thank you
Okay.
for explaining that.
I'll comment on one thing. We had, this is a little bit accelerated, and I feel bad for Christine, who's probably going to be involved in trying to publicize this, et cetera. But we had discussed, given, the fact that we might not vote on this until today, do we wait and install the board member 2024? But we felt like, why would we wait an entire year? There was no real good way. We thought about options of like having mid-year or different time, but we felt like this was the best path forward to try to get someone in place by.
Okay, are there any more comments? I thought I saw a hand, right?
Who's going to do the process in picking the student? Is the Board of Education going to do the process, or are we doing the process?
We
Did I miss something?
Skip, we talked about this.
Essentially, what we would do, the exact process we did basically a year ago when we advertised for the position. We had interviews that were done by, I believe, the governance committee or a select group did the interviews. It actually was Janaline and Christine plus whatever other trustees. And then the decision would be recommended to the full board, and the full board would vote on it in May.
Okay, we'll set up a committee to do it.
Yes.
And it's open to public, private, and households.
Right. Okay,
Good question.
excellent. Good discussion. Are we ready to vote? All in favor?
Before we go, could you totally restate what was, can you restate it?
Well, the recommendation, we're voting on a recommendation from the governance committee.
Do you want to hear the parameters again, or just what we're?
I just want to make sure.
Okay, let me see if I can restate this, and okay, and one of you who was on the committee can correct me, but you're voting on adding a full rights voting member of the board who would be a rising junior or senior out of the public, private, or homeschool community. This would be added as an 18th position on the board, and that's it.
Right, and they only do it for 1 year.
Yeah, they have a 1-year term.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So are those?
I make a motion that we.
I think we've got.
Okay, we made a motion.
It's a recommendation.
Because it's a recommendation from a committee.
So we don't have to do
It is
that.
called for.
Right. So now we're asking for those in favor of the recommendation, yay or nay? Yay.
Go ahead. All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? Passed unanimously.
Congratulations.
Okay, we will revisit in 1 year. And now now we'll go to the Finance and Audit Committee. Where's Ms. Gandhi?
So just two things that highlight for the Finance and Audit Committee. When we met, we discussed the memorandum of understanding between the foundation and the library. We did not have any comments on it, and I actually put a motion in to forward it on to the governance and strategy committee for review. The foundation has already reviewed the memorandum of understanding, so no changes from our end. And then the other highlight would be just the risk management audit, which kicked off in January, and so that is currently in progress.
All right. Okay, any other comments? All right, go to the next report, which is the Human Resources and Diversity Committee. Ms. Solomon, I'm sorry, you're deferring?
Our meeting was pretty much a presentation by Bethany Lambert, our learning development manager. And she just talked a lot about what we do for training and onboarding and all of that. It's a pretty extensive program, especially considering how small the department is. So we did link that presentation in Board Effect. If you'd like to take a look at it, I think you'd find it interesting. That was mostly our meeting.
Yeah.
That pretty much took our meeting. So I encourage you to take a look at it. Let us know what you think.
Thank you very much. Next one is the foundation report.
So I'll just highlight a few items from the report. We don't have the full report on Board Effects. First, the end of year giving campaign held from from November to December of 2023. 2022. Our community supported the library with $169,000 in donations. These gifts will help support various programs that aren't funded through the county budget. We have a If You Give Moves a Cookie fundraiser going on in collaboration with Always Ice Cream Company to support the library. So the library staff offered a bunch of fun ice cream flavor names and ideas, and then the public voted on their favorite, and so that's where we landed on. If You Give Moose a Cookie, it's a vanilla ice cream with fudge swirl, peanut butter, foam pieces, cookie dough. So you can order this flavor of the month for the month of February, and portions of proceeds will be donated to your library. This flavor will be available at all 4 locations, and today has been widely popular. Also, and the details can be found at aac.net/foundation/ice cream. And then lastly, Library Giving Day is April 4th, 2023. We're part of a nationwide coalition of libraries joining forces to raise funds through Library Giving Day. This one day of giving reminds us that libraries serve as cornerstones for our communities. So watch your emails for information on how to give and share with friends and family. Last year, our community donated over $56,000 in support of Summer at Your Library.
Yum, yum, tasty. Any other comments from that committee?
I would just like, I don't remember if you said that about tomorrow, did she just,
No, she did not.
Okay, so tomorrow, you have the chance to have ice cream with the county executive and the mayor of Annapolis at noon.
At noon at the West Annapolis Always Ice Cream.
Yeah.
Some of the foundation board members are planning on attending.
So, yeah, so
2 of them are in the room.
come on out, I'm gonna try. Okay, great. Great ideas, always coming from the foundation, thank you.
Yeah, good job, thank you. The next report is the Treasury's report.
So as of January 31st, we are about 58% of our budgeted revenue and expenditures. Overall, that comes out to, in terms of specifically speaking about revenue, we're at 59%. There's a little bit of a dip in terms of self-generating revenues and that's the public printing. But other than that, everything's in line. And then on the expenditures, we're about 53% of our budget for fiscal year 23. There is a slight decrease in personal expenses, personal services, and that's primarily because of the state vacant positions we currently have. And then there is also sort of an increase in expenditure from printing costs for our publications. So those are a couple of things.
Hey, now we will move to our CEO's executive leadership team report.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Again, it's great to see everyone. The last report we're gonna do is gonna be led off by Rudy Rodella, and that is our report on Strategy 2024. But before we get to that, Actually going to have an action item for you right now, which is that we want, and I have recommended to the board, that we make the Friday after Thanksgiving a permanent holiday of the library system. So on Board Effect, and by the way, I want to encourage everybody to use Board Effect. Go in and use it. If you have any trouble with it, talk to Donna. I know that we have at least one member of the board who has never gone into Board Effect.
Not me.
So most of you are going to be Board Effect. Put them on blast. This is our life on Board Effect. We're going to do a cheer for Board Effect. But so the first on Board Effect, you will see that I've made this recommendation. I will be asking in a minute for a motion to approve a revised holiday schedule with the addition of the Friday after Thanksgiving as a new holiday in recognition of Native American Heritage Month. So this is a recommendation that has come from our, what we call LEDIT, the Library Equity, Diversity and Inclusion team. They suggested this. It's been one of those holidays that, you know, our staff always are working on that Friday after Thanksgiving, and it proves a bit of a hardship, and it's not terribly, terribly busy. We thought about recommending, I think it's Indigenous Peoples Day, which is formerly known as Columbus Day, or I guess still known as that. But we decided that that's not as important to our staff, and I think our LEDIT group felt it wasn't as important to staff as having this Friday after Thanksgiving. So what this will do, and on Board Effect, you'll see the chart where I compare our holidays, our annual leave, and our personal days with Anne Arundel County government, with Baltimore County Public Library, Howard County Public Library, and Prince George's County Memorial Library System. So currently we have 9 holidays, 6 personal leave days, and 20 annual leave days. The good thing about our annual leave is you get it when you start. You don't have to build up to 20 days as you do in some other systems. Some other systems have more annual leave vacation days. Anne Arundel County government has 12 holidays, and in an election year, they have 13, because that becomes a holiday. And they have 5 personal leave days. So we added, a few years back, our board added 2 personal days, because that at the time was the desire of staff to try to have more flexibility on days rather than be tied into the holiday schedule. So that happened some time ago. In the case of Baltimore County, there are 14 holidays, including 3 floating, 7 personal leave days, and between 20 and 25 annual leave days. Howard County has 14 holidays, just 3 personal leave days, which includes your birthday. And then they start with 15 days of annual leave, and they go up to 20 like we are after they've been there for 3 years. And then Prince George's has 13 holidays, and on the year when there's a presidential inauguration, that's a holiday. They only have 4 personal days, and again, they start with 15 days, and when you've been here more than 15 years, you go up to 26 days. So what I'm trying to get at is, it's not like we're giving people lots and lots of extra time. This is a great thing to be able to help staff. We added, you as a board added Juneteenth a year ago. So that got us up to 9 holidays. This will take us to 10 holidays. And I highly recommend it, and want to see if anyone has a motion that they would like to place on the floor and have further discussion.
Just a question. Do we know offhand, which are the holidays that these other entities get?
I would have to go back and look. Kathy, do you know? I know you did some of the research on this for us.
I think it's some of the days that we turned into personal days. So I could give you the specifics, but it's like we're open on Veterans Day, we're open on President's Day, we're open on, Columbus Day, we're open on these other days, and those are the days. The federal holidays, a lot of them were open, so I think that's the difference.
And again, keep in mind, there's a balance always between being open for the public and providing our service, but also being fair to our staff and trying to do good things for our staff at the same time. you know, some extra holidays are, I think, are valuable.
I think this is
I think
important
it's
for
awesome.
this
Yeah,
thing.
great, great idea.
Dallas, what-
I think it's great.
okay, all right, so
we need a motion?
does anyone, yeah, we need a motion.
I can make a motion
Okay, and it is?
to approve the after Thanksgiving as a holiday.
Okay.
Okay, need a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, are there any opposed? Any abstention? Okay. It's passed unanimously.
Yay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful, thank you.
Report it back to staff.
Please, tell us.
That's great,
Yeah,
thank you.
it's a good report. Early Christmas present. Oh.
Okay, so I guess that it's still my report. I was talking with Chris Nelson this week and this past month. There's been quite a lot of activity at the state level on a variety of bills that are before the General Assembly. Most of the bills are enhancements to funding, and so yesterday I was there. Christine has helped to facilitate this for me immensely by signing me up to give testimony, and she's helped me to submit written testimony. Yesterday's bill was one that Delegate Dana Jones is the chief sponsor of, and it is for the State Library Resource Center to create some kind of incremental additional funding for that library. Now keep in mind, the State Library Resource Center is that central library on Cathedral Street in Baltimore. And if you haven't been, I'll take you on a personal tour, because it's a great, wonderful library, but it serves as kind of the hub for the state. Since there isn't an actual state library, that library of Enoch Pratt serves the same function, and they provide databases, they provide training. There's just a huge benefit. So this bill was to enhance the funding and carry it forward through 2030. So in some ways, it's a minimal bill, but because Dana Jones is just absolutely loves the library, she wanted to have a bill to sponsor, and our professional association kind of put it her way, and she testified as I did and a couple of others. But there's other funding bills such as the state aid to public libraries. There's a bunch of bills, and you'll see a summary sheet on board effect of about 8 or 10 different bills. The primary one I want to talk to you about is a couple of sort of competing bills on collective bargaining in public libraries. So what I have done already is to testify in favor of what is known as House Bill 65 with amendments. And we are working behind the scenes to develop amendments. Actually, let me give you the full background, because today Christina and I were over at the General Assembly, and a Senate bill was heard, and I have provided written testimony, but my verbal testimony I wasn't able to give today for a technical reason, kind of like our technical reasons with our Zoom and everything. But the way this has come up is, first of all, there are 4 library systems out of 24 in our state that have unions. For many years, Montgomery and Prince George's County have had a union. I believe they both have MacGeo, if you're familiar with the union world at all, but they've had that. 2 years ago, Baltimore County Public Library was unionized with the International Machinists and Aerospace Workers Union, IAM. And then this past year, Enoch Pratt was unionized through AFSCME. So my personal position is my son is like a major league union person. I don't have any objection to unions. You know, if our employees want a union, then I want them to have the option. And what has to happen for public libraries to form a union is the General Assembly has to create enabling legislation. There isn't any for the 20 library systems that are not the ones that I mentioned just now. So a year ago, Harford County had a bill introduced that didn't go anywhere. And but the chair of the Appropriations Committee in the House is Ben Barnes, who represents part of Anne Arundel County as well as part of Prince George's County. And Ben Barnes said to both the delegate, Steve Johnson out of Hartford, who was introducing the bill, but also to all of us in the public library community who serve as part of the Maryland Library Association and the Maryland Association of Public Library Administrators. Chairman Barnes said, get us a bill that covers the whole state so that we don't have to have a bill for Hartford, a bill for Anne Arundel, a bill for Cecil, et cetera, et cetera. Let's just take care of this all at once. And so over the past year, our professional associations have been working with a highly trained, highly expert labor law attorney to develop a bill. They started with the bill that was introduced last year. They looked at enabling legislation for all these other counties, and they basically looked through and worked through this whole process of figuring out what would be the best enabling legislation. That attorney, Melissa McGuire, she sent the information around, and I asked our attorney, Jay Creech. So Chris Delson and I and Jay Creech worked through that bill. Jay made several recommendations, and Jay talked with Ms. McGuire and kind of worked out what we think is a really good bill. Now, that bill is actually introduced in the Senate by Senator Pam Beidel. It's Senate Bill 680, and you have that bill in board effect. You can look at the whole bill. The approach we are taking is to support that bill, but it does not have a cross-filed bill in the House of Delegates. So it's sitting there on its own. The bill that is HB 65 is the one that was introduced by Delegate Johnson, and we have made recommendations on amendments. So Ms. McGuire worked with the team, and the person who's mainly working on this is Morgan Miller, the Executive Director of Cecil County Public Library, as the head of the Professional Association Legislative Committee. But we also have a lobbyist that is well known to all of the senators and delegates. Her name is Hannah Garagiola, and she founded a company called Compass Advocacy about a year or so ago. So we've been working with Hannah for about 15 years now. She's great. She's helped us get funding bills through, and she knows everybody. So she and Morgan are working with Chairman Barnes with the amendments that we have proposed to try to get that in place so that that original bill, HB 65, can be sort of amended to be something that will be fair. The whole point is to be fair to the unions, fair to the employees, fair to the communities, and fair to the library management. We did not and do not feel that the original House Bill 65 was fair. So for example, one of the things that it does is when the library director receives notice that 30% of the employees are interested in affiliating with a certain bargaining unit, that first bill gives the library director 7 days to respond. And so we are proposing that be 30 days because just the way that we operate, it's kind of impossible. If I was on early March, I'm going camping, vacation, I'll be out of commission for 7 days at least. So there's that. The original bill, it builds everything around sort of making the agreement between the union and the management subject to the approval of the county executive or county council or county commission, when that is not the body that governs our libraries. Our boards of trustees govern the library. So those are two key changes that we want made, and we're working on friendly amendments with Delegate Johnson to try to make this all happen. So it's a little bit of what they call sausage making, and we're working through it. And Chris especially wanted me to let you know what's going on, and I'm glad to answer any questions you may have. Or not. Okay.
Well, just one question, Skip.
Yes.
Is there anything that we can do to support this effort? Is there, any kind of advocacy that we can do or outreach or anything?
There is possibly there really is. Christine, is there any type of a motion that this board can make to support either Delegate or Senator Vital's bill or the HB 65 with amendments? See, we don't know the amendments yet. We don't know. Yeah,
One of the things that I've done in advocacy, once we have the details, there can be a letter that is something that unifies the board's and opinion or support of this action. And we go in and we electronically sign it, saying that as a board member or as a community member of Anne Arundel County or the state of Maryland, this is a statement that we're in support of. So we can write our own letters, or we can have that letter that encompasses how we support, and each one of us signs it. That's some of the advocacy I've been involved before.
We're really happy with where the bill is.
Yeah, just, right, when it's appropriate.
So since you won't meet until May, and the General Assembly will not, they'll finish their session. I can't recall whether it's allowed for you to take an electronic vote on a letter. You certainly could sign it. You could, perhaps we could craft a letter at the right time, send it around to you, gain your agreement, and then we can send it on your behalf. So I guess we can do that. We'll aim to do that. I'm guessing we'll know something more solid in about 3 or 4 weeks. Thank you. Okay. And the next item is actually Ms. Gandhi. It is your motion to have the memorandum of understanding between this board and the Foundation Board of Directors be reviewed by the Governance Strategy and Organization Committee. So if you want to give some background on that.
Sure. So it's an agreement that's been around since 2016. It's reviewed annually. The foundation has already reviewed it back in September. When the Finance Committee reviewed it, we did not have any comments. And so just wanted to make the motion to pass it on to the Governance.
And what Chair Nelson asked me to pass along to the board is that in future years, we won't have 2 different committees reviewing it. We'll just decide it'll either be one committee or another. So if this is agreed to, then governance will hear it. We'll review the MOU in April. We'll bring it to the full board in May. And then we'll bring along the recommendation that in future years, it'll be the Finance and Audit Committee, or it'll be the Governance, Strategy, and Organization Committee. So with that,
any discussion?
A point of clarification.
Sorry.
Sorry, I just wanted to point out that the agreement was originally signed in 2021. So you said, yeah. That's okay. Since it probably went into the record, I wanted to make sure it was correct.
Okay. Other points? Just call. I'm calling.
So I guess that was a committee recommendation, so we don't need motions, just that is.
It's just a vote.
Okay, so.
Right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions?
Okay.
None.
Okay.
And you have one more.
So the last is,
The strategy.
is that we're going to talk about strategy 2024-25, and Mr. Rodella will lead us into that. Don't leave before I can read this.
So.
I'll do that.
The library's been operating under Strategy 2023 for the last 3 years. That document has been a real game changer for the library overall. We developed that plan with in association with Market Sullivan Studio. They came in, they helped us do the background for it. we took a entirely different tack with that plan. We stayed away from detailed, this is what you're gonna do this year, this is what you're gonna do that year. All those metrics that you see usually come out of what's been basically referred to as a strategic plan. We focus instead on the strategy. Who we are, what we want to do, and what changes we want to see in the world. That change made it possible for us to get through COVID. We not have that plan in place, and we not have that strategy in place. Whatever strategy or strategic plan we had before was out the window anyway, because we couldn't do anything for so many months. But instead, we looked back at what our strategy called us to do and used those guideposts as a way to move the library forward and get through that crisis. Game changer. So, but it has now been 3 years, so it's time for us to refresh that strategy. And this is the product that we want to present to you tonight. Unfortunately, we did not, one of the things that did not make the county executive's budget was a request for consulting funding. So, me being librarians, we figured, there's never a crisis that's too small to become an opportunity. So that's what we did. We took that around, we looked at it, looked at the process that we just gone through with the Margaret Sullivan exercise, and we thought, we can do this ourselves. So we did it. We put together a team, a steering committee, which is comprised of the regional managers and myself, because I was dumb enough not to be at the meeting when the plan was being signed, so there I was. So four of us, we got together and we mapped out what we were going to do to develop a new strategy, a new successor strategy, which is 24, 25, and over the next 2 fiscal years. Because of the timing of this, we were also in the middle of the design equity and inclusion study. We needed to pull that team in as quickly as possible. So we met with them and formed in with them very early on in the process. And you'll see their work and their ideals, their goals are woven very tightly into the strategy itself. We then asked the CEO to develop for us, to write down for us, just the plain language, just his thoughts, his ideas, where he wants the library to go. From that very fine document, we then sat down and started mapping out how to express those goals and those ideals in language that the branch manager can turn around and take and use to develop their own branch plans. That coordinates all of our work, keeps us going in the same direction, and ensures that our brand remains true to what we promised our customers. So we met, we got the objective statement, we started the talking and working through. We put together 2 sets of focus groups. One was the community practice focus group, since there were 4 of those. One was library leadership team, branch managers. There was public services, so the forward facing the library, support services, all the backroom and back of house operations, as well as outreach. So those 4 areas met individually, mapped out what the new strategy was going to look like, and then we came back into the writer's room, another draft, another iteration, came back to a second set of focus groups. The same people that were in the community practice groups, we then mixed and matched, got them into regional groups. So now you have essentially many libraries representing each of the regions of the county. And ran through the second draft with them, get their feedback, and their review of that language. We presented the final draft to the CEO in January, and we previewed it with the branch leadership so far. And now tonight we're here to present to you. The next steps after this is we're going to be developing a strategy dashboard. We want to put that on the library's intranet, so all of our staff can see not just the current strategy, but also the strategies from before, so they can see the ladder of success that we're building upon, where we've been, where we are right now, and the idea of where we want to go. And they'll also be able to see each of the branch and departments' individual operations plans and what they had set as their own goals for the next year, so they can coordinate among themselves. They can look and see, oh, East Port is doing this great program, maybe we can piggyback off of them and steal, be inspired by one of their ideas. And then all that, and then at the end of June, this is when the sunset of our current strategy arrives, and we will start on the new strategy. And one of the innovations that we did with this new strategy, it's a 2-year plan, so it's fixed. We named it rather prosaic, but still, you know what it is. We're looking now at strategy as being something that we do constantly. We constantly update the collection, always in stacks, pull the old stuff out, put the new stuff in. That same model should work for our strategy as well. We should be doing that as well for strategy. It's not an extra that you do once a year and then don't do anything for the next 3 years and say you have to do all over again. It's something you should be doing all the time. So, near the end of July, we're going to do a mid-cycle review. So the regionals and myself will get together again, look at how the plan is going, what kind of reporting we're getting out of it, and see if we need to make any tweaks to it. And those tweaks will be incorporated for year 2 of the plan. Of course, we get an annual report that Christine's team does. That is a primary reporting vehicle for strategy. If you kind of take a look at it, it's really a wonderful document. It's really impressive. So, that work will be reflected in the annual report. And then, of course, at the end of that, we're going to be doing a new cycle revision to look at the next strategy, the next iteration of the strategy. Because it's a cycle, this is where we are right now. We're preparing for that with a new plan. We're going to finish out the old plan, do some reporting on that, and then start a whole other plan for 26, 27. It's kind of new for us. I'm going to give it a shot. I think it'll be beneficial for the library overall, especially because once you see all the people that were involved in it, it's one person's vision, a unified vision, but it's something that all of us have invested in, and all of us have had a chance to look at and give input to and adjust. That is the document we want to present to you tonight. Mr. Wall?
Okay, so I will tell you what the plan is in just a moment. I do have copies of this. Unfortunately, it got soaking wet by a spill that happened with me, but I will hand this out afterwards. I want to give you some background before I talk about what the plan is. When we did our last strategic plan, and Karen, you were part of that planning process, very intricately involved, we hired Margaret Sullivan, who also was one of the architects for the Bush Annapolis Library, but she does strategic planning and consulting, and so she was great. She subcontracted with Maureen Sullivan. Maureen has been president of the American Library Association. Her whole career has been management consulting, but we had a really great sort of project with that. As we were beginning this new process, we talked with Maureen, and she sent us a document. I want to talk with you just real quickly about what is your responsibility as a board versus my responsibility as the library director leading all of our staff. For the one that she listed a chart on kind of everything, but for planning, the library director is responsible with input from board, staff, community, and foundation, develop a strategy defining the library's values, vision, and goals. And the board's responsibility is ensure that the library is faithful to its stated values and vision and is working to achieve the stated goals. So that kind of gives you sort of your role in this whole process. Now, in talking through this with Simona and with Chris Nelson yesterday, it's up to you to decide if you want to, after you hear this presentation, if you want to approve it, to make a motion to approve it. You don't have to, but if anyone is moved to want to have the official imprimatur of this board on this plan, someone can make a motion to approve or adopt this plan, and we'll see where that discussion goes. The very fine document that Rudy talked about, which I sent to him and to the regional managers, and he did a little self-denigrating there by saying he was roped into this. Rudy is a superb planner and strategic thinker, as I think you all know. But here's the document. I want to read you some sections of this, because the very first thing that Rudy and Gloria Harberts, Carol Kaysen, and Wanda Wagner did was to say, Skip, give us your vision. And I had years ago written a vision statement, but it wasn't quite where I wanted it to be. So here's what I stated to them. Again, I'm not going to read verbatim every last thing, but there's some important pieces. 3 major principles or sets of laws guide my vision on the value of libraries. These principles are social responsibility, intellectual freedom, and Ranganathan's 5 laws of library science. The librarians in the room, they know what that is. So in recent years, our library system has embraced our responsibility to address the social inequities inherent in our society. We express this in both our materials and program selection policies. And so that's stated. The material selection policy is under review right now, but we state that the library is an agent for positive change for our community. The library is committed to the truth and trustworthy information, fighting all forms of disinformation, censorship, and barriers to free inquiry. The library is a welcoming, inclusive place for every customer and acts to dismantle exclusionary structures, including but not limited to racism, sexism, homophobia, and xenophobia. And the library advances individual and societal goals for equity, inclusion, and social justice to benefit the whole of our community. So that's my number 1 principle, is social responsibility. We also have a long-standing commitment to intellectual freedom, and I want to read you a little bit about that, because keep in mind, this is what informed the whole project going forward. There is an article, which if anybody really wants to get it, you can let me know and I'll send it to you. It's called, but not censorship, but selection. It was written in Wilson Library Bulletin in 1953 by a person who later became my library science professor at UNC Library School. His name's Lester Ashheim. But there's a couple of pieces of that article that I wanted to share. The real question of censorship versus selection arises when the librarian, exercising his or her own judgment, decides against a book which has every legal right to representation on the shelves. The selector's approach is positive, while that of the censor is negative. The selector, the important thing is to find reasons to keep the book. The selector begins ideally with a presumption in favor of liberty of thought. The aim of the selector is to promote reading, not to limit it, not to inhibit it. And finally, selection is democratic while censorship is authoritarian. The third principle are the 5 laws of expressed by S.R. Ranganathan. He was an Indian librarian who in the 1920s and 1930s developed the 5 laws of library science, which is a whole book that he wrote. But here are the 5 laws. And these 5 laws have been adapted in the library world in different ways, adapted to the digital world and adapted in many other ways. But number 5 is kind of the keynote of this. Books are for use, every person, his or her book. Every book, its reader, save the time of the reader. And finally, a library is a growing organism. So that forms the background of this plan. And Rudy, if you could, oh, you've got it, there it is. So here is the actual plan. A little hard to read from here, but it is in board effect. Your primary working document on being a board member. But so this is something I'm very proud that we have developed. We have revised some of our statements, but we have built upon what we created in the past. Our vision is basically the same vision that we have had for a few years now. Our vision is to be a welcoming and evolving community where all people connect, grow, and belong. So this is slightly different, but we want to, it incorporates some of the same principles, and it's an inspiring vision, I believe. Our purpose, also known as our mission, is that we are a community connector. Now, that phrase came out of the previous plan. Karen, you may remember that well. But we are a community connector using our resources and partnerships to educate, enrich, and inspire the lives of all people. And then we added in, because we have, as you know, worked for the last year on the equity audit report and the development of an equity framework that we created an equity team. And because of that, we have this commitment to equity, and we state, we advance diversity, inclusion, and belonging for our staff, customers, partners, and the whole community to create an equitable library and society. We are committed to using our resources and partnerships to improve the lives of people of every race, ethnicity, culture, faith, age, sexual orientation, ability, socioeconomic status, and gender. And our values, kindness, curiosity, belonging. So with that, we have established several goals, and I want to leave it to you to take a look at those goals whenever you wish. But I just wanted to present that to you, and if you want to talk about it, now's a good time.
Discussion?
You love it, don't you? Okay. Well, I will have copies of this for everyone. Before we conclude, I have something that Chris said was very important for me to let everybody know. To my left is the winner of the Maryland Library Association Distinguished Service Award, Simona Simmons. Simona. I want to just read the notice in the citation here. Congratulations to Simona Simmons, first Vice Chair of Anne Arundel County Public Libraries Board of Trustees, for winning the 2023 Maryland Library Association Distinguished Service Award in honor of her longtime commitment to Maryland libraries. Before I go into it, I'm going to just mention that they also gave this award this year to former Attorney General Brian Frosh. So I would say that he's in good company. Ms. Simmons has dedicated much of her life to working in and supporting libraries. Not only has she provided library service in a variety of roles, but she has trained and encouraged countless students, developing today's leaders in the field. She has served as a pivotal member of Anne Arundel County Public Library's Board of Trustees for nearly a quarter century. Most of you won't have that option because we're term limited now. But anyway, in Simona's tenure, she has held many leadership positions, including currently serving as first vice chair and as a member of the board's executive committee. She also served as a member of the library's 100th anniversary committee, tasked with marking the system's centennial and unique history. She has served as library school faculty at multiple universities, written for scholarly publications, and worked independently on special projects, workshops, and seminars. She is a consistent presence at professional conferences, library advocacy efforts, and mentorship opportunities. She truly believes in the tremendous value of libraries and librarians. Ms. Simmons is the namesake of the University of Maryland Simona Simmons Best Student Paper Award, a fund that supports an annual award for the best student paper written by a graduate student specializing in information and diverse populations, or a paper focused on an issue of primary concern to that specialization. So again, let me congratulate you, Simona, and
Thank you.
You're the best.
Thank you very much. finish this meeting, first of all. Pass it out, and I think we should send positive thoughts towards Chris. We're really miss him today. And thank you all for your support. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Second. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Okay, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everybody. Great meeting. Great meeting. That's what I wanted.
I